What would happen if every human being on Earth disappeared? No matter how we might vanish. This is the story of what could happen to the world we leave behind. Now on Life After People. The cities we built turned untamed wilderness into fortresses of concrete and steel. But when we're gone, Mother Nature reclaims what's hers. In New York City, new residents take over the concrete jungle.
What used to be sidewalks and streets is now a wild, tangled green.
These monkeys are highly intelligent. They would very quickly become the smartest species in all of New York City.
Once the theme park capital of the world, Orlando is swallowed up by the swamp.
Very little of Orlando would survive. The city will be fully absorbed by the swamp it was built on hundreds of years ago.
And Rio de Janeiro succumbs to the surrounding rainforest.
Picture it, mud, fertilizer, human and industrial waste. That toxic cocktail jump-started a botanical explosion.
In a world without people, the planet's most significant cities will be overrun, swallowed whole, and taken back by Mother Nature. Welcome to Earth. Population 0. The city that never sleeps is silent. There are no crowds in Times Square, and no tourists in Central Park. Towers of glass and steel still stretch toward the heavens. But from the skies themselves, relics of mankind shatter the quiet.
On the busiest day, there can be around 9,000 individual helicopter trips crisscrossing New York City.
Empty helicopters rain down upon the city, and debris tears through shops, theaters, and apartment buildings.
It isn't just the impact. These choppers are carrying hundreds of gallons of fuel. Each one of these things is like a hand grenade the size of a rhino. The destruction would be intense.
These places were once filled with life. Now there are no crowds to scream, no eyes to see the wreckage. But the shattered glass and broken concrete aren't just open wounds. They're open invitations for new inhabitants to creep out from the shadows of Central Park.
It's actually teeming with hundreds of species of wild animals. Hawks, owls, ducks, squirrels, raccoons, bats, and even coyotes.
From within the depths of the park, animals begin to emerge. But in one corner of the park lies something stranger. It's home to a whole menagerie of predators, pests, and exotic creatures.
At the southwest corner of the park sits the Central Park Zoo. It was established in 1859 kind of by accident with a stray bear tied to a tree. Before long, people started donating other animals to the park, and eventually the zoo became official. It housed over 130 species, from tropical birds to snow leopards.
Most would not be able to even escape their enclosures, and they would die of starvation or dehydration in a matter of a few weeks. But not all habitats have a roof.
Some animals live in open-air enclosures, like snow monkeys or Japanese macaques. But it's just a short swim and a climb, and they're out of there, which is exactly where hunger would take them.
These monkeys are highly intelligent. They would very quickly become the smartest species in all of New York City.
A host of strange creatures roam beneath the branches of Central Park. Some hunt, some hide. But the most intelligent among them recognize that there's a world outside the park. Unguarded, torn open, and full of opportunity. 1,000 miles from the concrete jungle of the Big Apple, there's another city, carved out of the deep, murky swamps of Florida, a glittering funhouse built on a wetland graveyard, Orlando.
Orlando isn't just a theme park hub, it is the theme park hub. There are 12 major theme parks. We're talking hundreds of rides and enough hotel rooms to house a small city.
Almost as many people live in Orlando as the entire population of Kansas. And the whole city is built on swampland that would be unlivable if it weren't for human engineering.
Over decades, we drained the swamps, buried them beneath pavement, and crowned them with rides. 1 week after people, theme parks are empty, and roller coasters stand frozen, waiting for riders who will never come. But there's something else humanity left behind, something volatile, and it could reshape the landscape not in decades, but in moments.
In most cities, fireworks are a once-a-year event. But in Orlando, fireworks are a nightly spectacle.
Some of the bigger fireworks shows use up to 2.5 tons of fireworks. They're packed into tubes called mortars and controlled by a computer.
At one of the small parks, there are hundreds of mortars packed, lying in wait for a show that will never begin. In the time of people, fireworks were canceled when thunderstorms were forecast. But now, there's nobody watching, and no one to safely store them away.
Fireworks usually go off one at a time, but a lightning strike could just set them all off at once.
And Orlando has a secret in its skies. It's the thunderstorm capital of the United States.
The entire state of Florida has the highest lightning density in the country. Each year, there are over 285 individual lightning strikes in any 1-mile radius.
The mortars lie silent but exposed. When a thunderstorm rolls in, all it takes is a single bolt of lightning crackling toward them.
A single bolt is 50,000 degrees. That's more than 5 times hotter than the Earth's core.
That would happen to be like a car bomb exploding. We'd leave a crater 15 feet wide and send a shockwave out a mile away.
Within a few hundred feet, the devastation will be immense. Roller coasters twist and warp, rides and attractions crumble and burn.
Orlando is on fire, but there are no sirens, no firefighters, and just 2 feet below the ground lies a sleeping giant. A vast web of pressurized natural gas lines ready to ignite and spark Orlando's return to the swamp. 4,000 miles away lies one of the biggest cities in South America, a place known as much for its wild rainforest peaks as for its endless nights of celebration, Rio de Janeiro.
During Carnival, Rio de Janeiro becomes something else entirely. 5 days of nonstop music, parades, and revelry. Between locals and tourists, as many as 11 million people will crowd into the city.
Gone are the sounds of revelry and lively samba music. Now, the streets of Rio are quiet as a tomb. But high above the city, one pair of lonely eyes still keep watch.
Christ the Redeemer is one of the most iconic statues of the world, with its outstretched arms representing protection and peace. It is made of 635 metric tons of reinforced concrete, which makes it twice as heavy as the Statue of Liberty, even though it's only half as tall. It's one of the new 7 wonders of the world.
Christ the Redeemer's arms stretch out over Shizuoka National Park, the only rainforest inside a major city.
Shizuoka National Park is within city limits, making it the world's largest urban forest. It covers 15 square miles. For comparison, that's 10 times larger than New York City's Central Park.
And where there's rainforest, there's rain. Thunderstorms strike here even more often than in Orlando, and there's one starting to darken the sky.
Brazil is the most lightning-prone country in the world. It gets hit up to 80 million times a year. And Christ the Redeemer stands on the peak of Corcovado Mountain, 2,300 feet above the city. That's the highest point in Rio, making it the prime target.
But unlike Orlando, Christ the Redeemer is ready. For decades, lightning has lashed this peak. And the statue, towering and silent, was built to withstand the assault.
Christ the Redeemer has lightning rods to harmlessly transfer all the electricity from a direct lightning strike into the ground. But over time, as storms grew more and more frequent, the system needed upgrades.
Lightning rods were also added to the statue's arms. In 2021, the crown of rods in its head was made 4 times bigger, and the base that helps dissipate electricity was expanded.
Now, after people, the statue's lightning defenses are frozen in time. They'll never be repaired, never replaced. And beneath its feet, the earth is shifting. Relentless rain seeps into the hillside, loosening the soil until slabs of land begin to slide toward the city below, groaning as they break free. A landslide that threatens to devour everything in its path. Coming up, monkeys are the new kings of Midtown Manhattan. And later, raging fires reach an explosive peak in Orlando. 1 week after People, Rio de Janeiro lies silent and exposed. And on the hillside above, something sinister is stirring. The heart of the city is glass, concrete, and steel. But between Rio and the towering peak are ramshackle neighborhoods, hastily stitched together like a house of cards clinging to the slope.
Brazil is famous, or maybe infamous, for its slums. There are these huge communities known as favelas, where people who can't afford traditional housing basically improvise their own. And they build shelters out of wood scraps, bricks, and sheet metal.
Favelas, by definition, are not planned. They're just built wherever people can find space. And sometimes that means people are building on top of old landslides.
Rio's automated rain gauges trigger alarms when the threat of landslides is high. Now they're screaming, a shrill warning echoing through empty streets. There's nobody left to hear them, and no emergency crews to respond.
Rio's sirens would warn residents to evacuate or kick response teams into high gear. With enough time to prepare, crews could pile sandbags, build temporary barriers, or even use heavy machinery to excavate channels. But in a life after People, there's nothing to slow this landslide down.
It isn't just the ground sliding down the hill. It picks up whole houses, trees, power lines, power poles. All of that goes down, swallowing up whole neighborhoods in minutes. And the speed is terrifying. A landslide can travel at 35 miles an hour. Think of that. That's faster than Usain Bolt in his prime.
Many favelas rely on makeshift drainage ditches. Human waste, industrial runoff, and garbage all collect into the same channels. When a landslide hits, all of that waste gets swept up, creating a wave of toxic sludge.
This isn't just a wave, it's a collision, like an asteroid crashing into the low-lying neighborhoods. Glass would shatter block after block after block.
With no one to rebuild them, Rio's favelas are crushed beneath tons of sliding earth. Their bones splintered and scattered. What will come creeping in from the surrounding jungle to replace them? In New York City, there's no one to stop Central Park from straining past old boundaries, working new growth into every crack and crevice. Snow monkeys that escaped from the Central Park Zoo now roam the grounds and leap between treetops. But hungry eyes are watching them.
Monkeys aren't the top of the food chain. We know that there are wild coyotes living in Central Park already. Coyotes don't eat monkeys in the wild, but I'll bet you they do it in Central Park.
Driven by instinct and hunted by predators, the monkeys flee the wild for something far stranger. A place built for power and wealth. Its opulent skyscrapers once occupied by the 1%. Billionaires' Row. Now the towers stand empty, ripe for a new kind of tenant.
Billionaires' Row isn't for the rich, it's for the filthy rich. The average unit is worth around $22 million, and the most expensive was listed for $238 million a few years ago, making it the most expensive home in the country at that time.
The crown jewel of Billionaires' Row is the tallest residential tower on the planet, its pinnacle stretching 1,550 feet into the New York sky. It's the Central Park Tower.
This tower was built to squeeze the maximum number of floors into one of the smallest plots in Midtown Manhattan. The result is this super slender skyscraper that is 131 stories tall.
A high-end department store takes up the first 5 stories of the tower. And thanks to damage caused by a crashed helicopter, what was once an exclusive entrance is now an easy way in.
Inside the flagship department store, Snow Monkeys would have 360,000 square feet spread over 7 floors. That's a wonderland of open space, of soft furniture, and endless places to climb.
They'd have designer clothes to nest in, dry goods to feast on, 6 different restaurants with non-perishables. They're living better than most New Yorkers today.
The monkeys are thriving, but they're not alone. Something else has crept in, something silent and slow-moving but destructive. And it's already spreading through the interior like a disease. In Orlando, what began as a spark is now an inferno. And lurking just beneath the ground is a dangerous relic of human civilization. One that won't just feed the flames, it'll supercharge them.
Normally when there's a fire, the fire department will coordinate with gas and utility companies to cut off services to stop the spread. But this can't happen if there's no people.
Florida has a network of natural gas pipelines that's 46,000 miles long. That's enough to reach orbit and come back. And it's all just 2 feet below the surface of the Earth.
This vast web of pipes and joints needs constant maintenance. And now, there are no technicians to conduct routine inspections, no one to make repairs. A slow leak that could have been fixed with the turn of a wrench hisses its way toward the surface. And without warning, an entire city block erupts, setting off a chain reaction that will eradicate nearly all that humanity built.
The initial explosion would be about 3,000 degrees. That would be enough to melt nearby cars. Connected homes would go up in flames, and other structures connected to the pipeline would become little fire bombs.
Eventually, the explosions and fires are going to reach gas stations. And at that point, entire neighborhoods are going to disappear in flames.
Orlando is ablaze. And even as it burns, there's something watching just beyond the fire line. Patient, ancient, unmoving. The swamp is waiting, ready to rise from the ashes. Coming up, the Statue of Liberty is under siege. And Mother Nature reshapes Christ the Redeemer forever. Just weeks after People, a fire is raging through Orlando like a hungry beast, consuming what mankind left behind, clearing the way for nature to take the city back.
With nobody to fight the blaze that's raging through Orlando, it could very easily turn into a firestorm. Basically, the fire takes on a life of its own and, for lack of a better term, starts breathing.
As the heat rises to 2,000 degrees, the firestorm sucks in cold air at ground level and feeds on the oxygen. This suction creates winds as strong as 100 miles an hour and pulls in anything that will burn.
At this rate, the city of Orlando will be burned away in weeks. But what's left behind won't just be rubble. It'll be a clean slate, a chance for the swamp to reclaim what was always rightfully hers. 15 years after People, the once manicured lawns of Central Park are overgrown. New saplings rising from the thickets. Animals now rule, and their kingdom is growing, taking root in even the most luxurious buildings.
The Central Park Tower, once the crown jewel, isn't looking so regal these days. It's used to being pampered just like its former ultra-rich residence. Glass, polished, steel shine. But the shine is gone.
The window seals are the weak link. Without upkeep, they're breaking down. Moisture seeps in, glue and sealants fail, trouble follows.
The snow monkeys were just the first wave of the wildlife invasion. As time passes, Mother Nature moves in and makes herself right at home.
Birds find new places to roost. Mold creeps into the drywall. Every crack becomes a foothold for something green. A little dust, a little rain, a few seeds dropped by birds, and boom, you've got trees growing in penthouses.
The residential tower is no longer a condo building. It's a habitat, a vertical wilderness reaching toward the clouds. But the new ecosystem is built on the bones of a civilization lost and gone, along with everyone who knew how to maintain it.
A building that thin is at the mercy of the winds. When the winds are strong, it literally sways like the deck of a cruise ship. In fact, it can even cause motion sickness.
The way Central Park Tower sways puts a lot of strain on the structure. To counteract this dangerous movement, there's a tuned mass damper installed in the top floor of the building.
Think of it as a giant pendulum, a huge mass that swings in the opposite direction of the wind to keep the tower stable.
But like everything, this device requires regular maintenance and repair to work properly.
The damper is monitored by a system that can adjust as conditions change. But even though it's automated, it requires power. So Central Park Tower's damper system has gone dumb, if you will.
Central Park Tower was designed to react, locked in an endless dance with the wind, step by engineered step. After People, how long before the music stops? A few miles away, the Statue of Liberty is trapped in an unwanted embrace. The stifling arms of an invasive vine called Virginia creeper, grasping at her base and methodically working its way upward.
Virginia creeper can grow as much as 20 feet per year. With no one around to eradicate it, with no animals to feed on it, there's no reason why it wouldn't be able to cover the entire statue.
This iconic statue that once welcomed people to New York is now being swallowed by it. And the worst of the damage is coming from inside.
Time has been chipping away at her copper skin, but wildlife has been throwing punches as well. Peregrine falcons have made a nest of her crown. Their poop is basically jet fuel for corrosion. It's highly acidic, especially when it builds up over time. It can eat away at almost any surface.
Where the copper panels are gone, the metal ribs and staircase are wide open to the elements, and damage is spreading fast.
This isn't the first time she's been in trouble. Back in the 80s, her iron bones were so rusted that they had to be completely replaced with ferrolium. That's a super strong stainless steel designed to withstand water and weather. But even this super material has its limits. Its lifespan is around 50 years.
Fetid, toxic water pools at her base, soaking into the seams and joints. Rust creeps along the connection points like a cancer. Coming up, New York City's tallest residential tower is being attacked inside and out.
That massive weight that was once there to keep the building balanced is now dragging the top of the tower even further off center.
And Christ the Redeemer faces an old foe. "25 years after People, Orlando is a charred skeleton of its former self. Now, the swamp is moving in to reclaim the city, and an insidious vine called kudzu is creeping and coiling on whatever remains.
This vine doesn't just grow, it conquers. And kudzu actually loves fire because all of the ash and decomposing rubble creates a nutrient-rich buffet that the kudzu is there to dig into.
Its root system can weigh up to 400 pounds, buried up to 10 feet deep, so it can handle heat that would vaporize other plants.
Imported from Asia back in the day to stop soil erosion, kudzu has now gone full villain mode. It now smothers over 7 million acres in North America. This thing can grow a foot a day, and it roots itself anywhere the stem touches soil. That's why they call it the vine that ate the South.
Without anyone to clear them, there's no drainage. And so floodwaters will continue to rise and the swamp will pretty quickly consume what's left of the city.
Without humans to fight it back, kudzu takes over everything. Burnt buildings, twisted roller coasters, melted Ferris wheels, all wrapped tight in endless green vines.
And it doesn't stop there. Orlando's 95 miles of canals and pipe systems are now completely clogged.
In the time of People, millions of dollars were spent every year on mowing and landscaping and pesticides, all to control kudzu. But not anymore.
Manhattan is surrendering to nature. Sidewalks split by roots, vines crawling skyward, and parks spilling into the streets. But above the encroaching forest, a shadow still looms. Central Park Tower. The lower floors of the tower are full of life. The snow monkeys aren't just hanging on. They're thriving. In fact, many new generations have now been born.
If they're having babies, it means they're doing well. They get enough food, low stress, healthy. It's a New York City survival story.
Snow monkeys are the Swiss Army knives of the animal kingdom. Smart, tough, and adaptable. They're cool with humid summers and just as happy in blizzards and sub-zero temperatures. They'll eat just about anything. Bugs, plants, bark, even dirt if they have to.
For decades, Central Park Tower has stood tall, a sentinel and a sanctuary. But year after year, wounds have worsened, scars have grown, until its flesh is torn open, bones exposed, and the winds continue to howl.
The Central Park Tower is now leaning hard. It was designed to cut through the wind, but not like this. The wind isn't just blowing around the tower anymore. It's barreling down into it. effectively turning it into a giant sail.
Gusts slam into the structure. And inside the luxury apartments, everything is chaos. Walls crack. Italian marble counters split. Glass showers explode like grenades.
Then, the worst case scenario. The tune mass damper fails. Dampers like this have a 20-year lifespan before major mechanical components need to be replaced. It would most likely just seize up and become a 1,000-ton dead weight.
The tallest residential tower ever built is now straining to stay upright, weighed down by exhaustion like a prize fighter too dazed to defend himself.
So that massive weight that used to keep the building balanced is now doing the exact opposite. It's leaning with the wind, dragging the top of the tower even further off center.
Somewhere around the 80th floor, the whole structure is finally going to give out. The pressure cascades downward, each floor pancaking onto the one below it in a chain reaction of absolute destruction.
In seconds, the entire top half of the tower breaks off and crashes down, smashing into nearby skyscrapers. Along Billionaires Row, buildings topple like dominoes.
There's a reason we don't let old buildings just rot. We bring them down carefully and strategically, because if a building falls on its own, it doesn't just fall, it takes the neighborhood with it.
Nearly 5,000 miles south in Rio de Janeiro, the rainforest isn't content to slowly creep in. It's racing through the city, impatient, eager to erase what humanity left behind.
After the landslides had tore through the hillsides and 20 years without people, Rio would have turned into a greenhouse on overdrive. Picture it: mud, fertilizer, human and industrial waste, all just stewing under the city's heat, humidity, rain, and blazing sun. That toxic cocktail jump-started a botanical explosion.
But high above the city, one of the wonders of the world, Christ the Redeemer, might be just as mortal as the civilization that left it behind.
The 14 vents built to let air flow through the monument are now acting like double agents. They let in dust, humidity, and driving rain. And once water gets inside, it's game over. Metal rusts, stairs corrode, and mold seeps into every corner.
And then you have gravity. It has been pulling on those arms since they were raised into place. And every crack, every little bit of rust is increasing the stress on the metal structures that support those arms.
To make matters worse, the lightning rods, which are there to protect the statue, are past their expiration date. The wires are frayed and soaked through. So one well-placed bolt from a tropical storm, which roll through several times a year, and that iconic statue takes a direct hit with no defense left.
Lightning slams into Christ the Redeemer. The force sends shockwaves through the statue's weakened arms. They begin to fracture until they can no longer hold. Coming up, Lady Liberty makes her last stand against Mother Nature. And later, Orlando is the battleground for a reptile showdown. 100 years after People, New York City doesn't look like a city anymore.
What used to be sidewalks and streets is now a wild, tangled green. Trees are bursting through the asphalt of Times Square. No more poodles in designer jackets. We have coyotes trotting down Broadway.
Relics of humankind can be seen everywhere, but they no longer serve any human purpose.
Balconies and fire escapes becoming makeshift planters. And up top, rooftops turn into forests, where full-grown trees are swaying, where open-air bars used to buzz.
The bones of the city are still standing. Stone, steel, brick, but now every wall, every roof, every window ledge has something growing on it. It's like a green roof on steroids.
It's surreal. A vertical wilderness draped over a forgotten city.
On Liberty Island, the statue that once stood for human freedom and equality, that once welcomed the world's huddled masses, has been shown no quarter. Her base is strangled by Virginia creeper vines, roots buried deep in cracked stone. Her copper skin is torn, her steel bones ravaged by rust and decay, and each passing day could be her last.
Even when the statue was at her best, a 50-mile-per-hour wind could make her sway as much as 3 inches in the body, but 6 inches in her arm. That arm and torch, 42 feet of unsupported metal, is the statue's biggest structural weakness.
With the steel connections between the pedestal and statue now weaker than ever, and the lower structural beams exposed to the elements, the entire statue begins to tilt.
Corrosion has eaten away at her once sturdy 440,000-pound steel frame. In her prime, she could withstand gale force winds. But now, an average breeze, much less the weight of too many pigeons on her crown, could push her all the way over.
With a final agonizing groan, metal bends past its breaking point. The statue wrenches free of her pedestal and collapses in a heap. After 239 years, Lady Liberty watches over New York no more.
It's a more realistic ending than the one envisioned in Planet of the Apes, but it's equally jarring.
In Orlando, what mankind built has been all but swallowed up. Gone are the concrete roadways, replaced by creeping vegetation and the teeming waters of the swamp.
That's exactly how the alligators like it. Water everywhere. Mother Nature is rewinding centuries of construction, draining, reshaping. Orlando is getting pulled back into the swamps.
Wooden homes not consumed in the firestorms are rotting piles of mush. Concrete buildings are draped in vines and moss, like something pulled right out of an Indiana Jones movie.
Humanity may be gone, but the swamps are far from empty. New creatures are creeping out from every corner, some of them predators, and some of them prey.
Florida is home to one of the world's most diverse populations of reptiles and amphibians. Some of them are native to the state, like the alligator, and others are not. But in this new wild kingdom, someone is always looking to pick a fight.
Coming up, a new challenger takes on the king of the swamp.
Now, it takes a very long time to suffocate an alligator, but Python's happy to play the waiting game.
200 years after people, the Orlando we once knew is gone. In its place is a soggy maze of swampland ruled by the animal kingdom.
This is what Florida was supposed to look like. Lush wetlands home to hundreds and thousands of unique species.
The apex predator is an ancient reptile now restored to the top of the food chain, the alligator. And its only challenger is an outsider, a deadly invader called the Burmese python.
Originally dropped into the wild by careless pet owners, these snakes don't just survive, they thrive.
Back in the 90s, when these guys showed up, the population of raccoons, possums, and rabbits nosedived almost immediately.
These snakes can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh 200 pounds.
Gators bite with a bone-crushing force of 2,100 pounds per square inch. But pythons don't need sharp teeth to win. They're stranglers, not biters.
Now, it takes a very long time to suffocate an alligator, but it can be done. and the python's happy to play the waiting game.
Even when the python wins, it can still lose. In 2005, a python tried to eat a 6-foot gator and its stomach literally exploded. But that doesn't stop them.
This is the brutal rhythm of nature, an endless cycle of kill or be killed. And in Orlando, in the aftermath of mankind, the swamp always wins. In Rio, the rainforest has hidden what little remains of what humanity left behind. Streets that once echoed with music and revelry are now shrouded beneath blankets of vegetation.
The Atlantic forest once covered nearly 400,000 square miles of Brazilian coastline. Just 200 years after people and Shizuoka National Park would have reclaimed a lot of that coastline. No longer just a park, but a thriving rainforest.
Now, only the solitary statue of Christ would stand out among the greenery that's masking everything that humans left behind.
In New York City, once America's ultimate urban jungle, only jungle now remains, and towering trees fill in the gaps between the crumbling ruins of the Big Apple.
In a city as built up as New York, superstructures like Central Park Tower would long have failed, but the more tightly packed buildings of brick and stone would linger a lot longer than we might think.
Maybe it would look like Hashima Island off the coast of Japan, where a mining town has been abandoned since 1974, but the buildings are all still standing, a living museum of the past.
Or Angkor Wat, Cambodia, the ancient capital of the Khmer Empire, where 900-year-old stone structures are still standing and bear the weight of trees and vines growing on them and clinging to their walls.
2 centuries after people, there are no fishermen, no nets. New York Harbor has been returned to the seals. And oyster beds cling to the coast.
A glimpse of what New York Harbor would have looked like